monitor resolutions. Real quick before we get into it, I am going to note, I just took a shower. That's why my hair's all slicked back. I gotta wait for it to poof back out as it dries. But let's get into it. Monitor resolutions. The crazy thing about monitor resolutions is that you're pretty much fine using anything, as long as you don't really care. But there are some major considerations to be made. For a long time there, I was using a 1366 by 768 monitor on my laptop that I had forever ago that I used to play like Minecraft and Roblox and all that. And a lot of Unity web games is what I used to play a lot as a kid. But eventually I did switch to using a desktop a while ago, and I stuck with 1080p for a long time because I just didn't really see the point. It's funny because the first monitor I properly, bought for myself or got for any real purpose, specifically to get a nice monitor, was a 27-inch 1080p curved monitor that went up to 165 hertz. And I thought this thing was amazing. I think at the time it was, decently, it was probably about $200 at the time. Something silly, ridiculous like that. 27 inches at 1080p, we'll get into it, but it's not good looking. Real quick, guys, it is Thanksgiving, and I would like to thank you all for tuning in. That was a bit cheesy, but it does mean the world, and if you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would mean a lot. A very small channel. I think we're right on the cusp of almost hitting 1K, so that's going to be exciting once that happens. But yeah, if you are looking forward to seeing more videos like this, then please consider subscribing again, and leave your comments down below about what you think about this topic. What monitor resolution do you have, and other things like that. And yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And now back to the video. What we're really going to be worried about when we're talking about monitors and resolutions, well, it's not really the resolution itself, it's the size of the screen as well. It's very important because that's when we're getting into pixel density, how close together the pixels are. What I have here is a little diagram of that. Look at that. Right there, right there, right there. See that? So on the left side, you can see how the blocks are larger. Those are representing pixels. Each of those are representing pixels, right? And on the left side, you can see how there is only a few pixels in that same size. And on the right, you're seeing that there's many more in that same area. And what that's going to effectively look like, it's going to make the image sharper for you, and it's just going to look overall nicer. Now that's regardless of resolution. How many pixels you have in each given area is a big deal, and that's called your pixels per inch. Your PPI, or your pixel density, is another way you can call it. And there's another chart. I got this off displayninja.com. Very nice site, actually. It had all this information laid out pretty nice. But you see right here, at 1080p, at 24 inches, you're going to have about 92 pixels per inch. And at 1440p, you're going to have 122, and 4K, you're going to have 184 pixels per, square inch. And the interesting thing about all this is generally you're targeting around 100 PPIs is what I've heard for general advice, and that's probably what I would recommend too, around 100. As soon as you get to the 27-inch 1080p screen, you're at 82, and at a comfortable viewing distance, it's still, you can obviously see pixels. I generally think that a good view distance is anywhere between 2.5 and 3 feet is a good spot to be at. So generally, if you look at this pixel per inch chart, there's a few interesting things to notice, right? First off, 1440p 32 inches is still a better resolution per pixels per inch than 24 inches at 1080p. That's insane. That's insane. That means just that step up to 1440p, you can get up to a 32-inch screen with 1440p and still be comfortable and still perceive images as sharp at a reasonable viewing distance. And that's huge. Another thing is that 4K is insane. 4K, you are always well above 1440p, even at 32 inches versus 24 inches. At 140 pixels per inch at 32 inches, it's kind of nutty. It's so hard to get to a point where you can see the pixels. Currently, I'm using a 4K 32-inch monitor, and it is hilarious how close you have to get in order to start making out pixels decently. It's one of those things where you reach close enough that it's so uncomfortable to sit that close that you're never going to sit that close, honestly. But honestly, the same thing goes for 24-inch 1440p screens. More than perfect. 27-inch 1440p is the sweet spot. A lot of people target that. It's got 109 pixels per inch, and that's where you're going to be sitting at a nice distance in order to get that. This is when we get into the discussion of Apple. Apple coined this term, right, of Retina display. And basically, what that is at a comfortable viewing distance, any set comfortable viewing distance, at what point does the pixel density make it so that, so the resolution to the size, right? At what point do those pixels become invisible? At what point do you no longer notice them as pixels and instead is just like a whole image and it starts to look sharp? That's what Retina is all about, right? And down here, we have a little chart of all the different points at which different sizes of screens and resolutions become Retina. At the top, we have 1080p at 24 inches. You need to be sitting about 37 inches or 94 centimeters away. At 1440p at 24 inches, you need to be at least 28 inches away or 71 centimeters. And at 4K at 24 inches, you need to be sitting at least 19 inches away or 48 centimeters away in order for it to become what they dub Retina. And for other common resolution to size ratios, 27-inch 1440p, you're 32 inches away. And 32-inch 4K, you're at 25 inches away before it once. So that's how far back you need to sit in order to not see any pixels. And with this monitor, yeah, you can definitely, you have to get really close, uncomfortably close in order for it to become obvious. At a normal viewing distance, was right here, I probably sit 2.5 feet away from it. It is perfectly fine. I'm 30 something inches away, and it recommends 25. And trust me, it looks big. And here's where you get into the really interesting thing, right? Now we've discussed the pixels per inch and the resolutions, and this is kind of like a rough diagram of what you're looking at. You might you hear that's one thing, right? But here's about what you're looking at. If you see up here, right here we have a 1080p 32-inch screen and a 1080p 24-inch screen. Now, in the center there, what you're looking at is each of these resolutions will need to end up taking up the same area of your vision, practically, is what we're talking about. The smaller the thing is, the closer it can get before it becomes an issue for you. If you see there is the retina zone in your cone of vision, right? That's where the pixels are going to be so small in the area of your vision that you're not going to be able to tell. When you take this 24-inch, it can go probably all the way to right here, and you'll still be fine in the retina zone. But if you get closer, it'll break into that, and you'll start being able to see pixels. With 32 inches, you need to set it further back, right? You need to set it further back than the 24-inch, or else those pixels will be large enough that you see it. That's just a little. So it needs to make sure that in your vision, it's always going to look like the same size, but you're just adjusting how far back it needs to go before it becomes sharp. So if sharpness is something that matters to you, then the size of your screen really only dictates the distance that monitor can be from you, or the distance that monitor has to be. If you don't care about sharpness really at all, then it can be as close as you want and you'll just have a massive screen. But at 1080p, if you care about sharpness, it's always going to look like this max, right? It's going to have a maximum size before it starts to become obvious that it's got pixels in it. And that's why higher resolutions at 24 inches can be closer to you, and so the screen will be bigger in your perceived vision, right? And 4K can be even bigger than that in your perceived vision. So while staying sharp, you can have a bigger screen. But you can also just have bigger screens at lower resolutions if you don't really care about sharpness all that much. Now, here's the considerations to be made generally. Now, that's just the basics, right? That's what monitors are, resolutions, and all that, how that impacts the screen itself, just for viewing. But there's other consideration to be made, i.e., how hard is it to drive that system? 1080p is one thing. So let's start here. 720p. So that's 1920. Oh, sorry, excuse me. That's 1280 by 720p. 1280 by 720p is called HD, or high definition, right? Generally, when we think high definition, we're not thinking 720p anymore. But originally, when it was originally made, that's high definition because it's, better than 480p. So anyway, 720p is high definition. 1080p, and so that's going to be even lower resolution than 1080p. 1080p is considered full HD, so full high definition. And then you have 1440p, which is called QHD, which is quad HD, because that takes that's basically doubling the size of the 720p in both ways. So it's squaring it. So it's like running 4 720p screens, which it looks really nice. That's when it gets into really nice territory. And 4K is UHD, Ultra HD, and that's basically running 4 1080p screens. And whenever you increase the amount of pixels that your computer has to address, it will take more power to run that from your GPU, right? So there comes a point where there might be diminishing returns for people. 1080p, I can see people really wanting to escape from. 720p, oh yeah, escape from that, run away. 1080p, you do have to sit fairly far away before it becomes, decent at a decent size, in my opinion. It ends up looking smaller than I like, but it still has its use, especially in esports, because having that, makes it just easier to track with your eyes. Although some people do lean in really close anyway, so I don't get why you don't just get bigger screen. But whatever. It allows for more maneuverability, I guess. And it's also just easier to run. But yeah, what I've noticed is the jump from 1080p to 1440p is significant when it comes to how much power it's going to take from your system. But it's more manageable now, especially due to upscalers. The crazy thing is, because you can take it down to 1080p and lower than 1080p and have it upscale to 1440p, it runs on almost anything. 1440p is just so easily manageable for any modern card that it makes the most sense to me. Unless you got a card with 8 gigs of VRAM. At that point, I wouldn't recommend it. But it's hard to even recommend those cards for any application. So generally, yeah, that's the rough thing. However, 1440p is like the Goldilocks zone right now. 4K is really rough. And after using it for a long time, here's why. With 1440p, your quality upscaling mode, which is 67% of the native resolution, is like 960p, or it's like some weird number, like 11 something by 960p, and that is lower than 1080p, which is cool. That's the quality mode, and it looks beautiful. And here's the thing: 4K's quality mode is 1440p. Practically, it's like something by 1444 or something like that. The crazy part is 4K performance upscaling is 1920 by 1080p flat, like exactly. And that is higher than 1440p's quality upscaling mode. Now, performance upscaling looks amazing at 4K. It's practically indistinguishable from 4K native at this point in many titles. But it's just insane to think that no matter what, even at performance upscaling, you are losing performance by quite a chunk from 1440p quality, just on the face. You just will. And it's like, oh my, that's hard to make that jump. If you have like a 5080, 4090, 5090, it's doable. It's very, very doable. Even 5070 Ti's and 9070 XTs can do it. You just might need to lower some settings. I mean, 5080, even like I have it overclocked quite a bit. But sometimes I find myself just wanting to get a few more frames out of my monitor. Like, it's always comfortably above a good level, generally. But I sometimes find myself wanting to get a few more frames, so I just turn settings down, as well as having that performance upscaling, which is insane, because upscaling, it does take performance to run these upscaling algorithms. And so when you're going all the way to 4K, it's taking quite a deal of your power away. If I just ran it native 1080p, I'd be getting so many more frames than if I was running upscaled 1080p up to 4K. And that's just a fact. I'm losing a lot of frames for that, but oh boy, does it look ever good. Native 1080p pales in comparison to 4K performance upscaling. Performance upscaling at 4K, breathtaking, especially in comparison to 1080p. It destroys it. It really does. Although it's hard to tell someone. It's hard to be like, yeah, I'm running a 4K screen, but really I'm rendering everything at 1080p with a 5080. It is hard to say that. It's hard to do that because it feels wrong. But honestly, upscalers have gotten so good that I do think it's worth it. The only thing is really that developers have started to treat upscalers as an integral part of the optimization of their games. They're treating it as if it is what makes the game playable, instead of having a baseline playability at native resolutions on, relatively tiered hardware, and then allowing us to use upscaling to get more performance out of it. And they're just not doing that anymore. And of course, I think many people could see this coming, honestly, because why wouldn't they? It's all of the performance is right there. Why do they need to start caring about, all of the optimization in other places when there's just free money? It's basically, free performance right here that they can just use. And who cares if the consumers get to use it? We're going to use it before them. And so it's basically the developers are using DLSS for us. They're stealing the benefits for themselves. And that's just the fact. They're stealing the benefit of upscalers so that they don't have to optimize their games as much, taking it right from our mouths, right? So we can't get the little bit of juice from it. They steal it, and they just make it so that they don't optimize their game. They just use DLSS for us, and that's it. And it just sucks. But anyway, that was a little bit of a rant, really. But honestly, here's the thing. 1080p is still viable. Right? It's still viable. It'll look good at any given, at a given distance with a given screen, right? You want to look up pixel density, and at what point does a screen start to look nice at any given size? And basically what you're going to do is you're just trying to find how long your desk is. If you care, right, about clarity necessarily, you need to know how far away, right, how deep your desk is, how far away your monitor sits, and how big you want your screen to be in your vision. At, 3 feet away, you can have a 24-inch 1080p screen, but it's going to be, small in comparison to a lot of things. And you can, or you could have a 4K screen that takes up way more space and allows you to, have more in your vision. And I like that for the immersion and just the clarity overall, because it's also going from 92 PPI to 140, so you can get even closer if you really want. Anyway, that's practically it. Reminder that you're driving so many more pixels by upping your resolution that for a lot of things it's just not worth it. 4K at the moment, it's beautiful, but honestly 1440p is so good that it's really hard to recommend 4K unless you really just want to, go all out crazy. That, and the fact that not only are you losing performance by going to 4K, you're also going to be spending more money in order to get a 4K monitor. 4K monitors cost more than 1440p monitors by quite a bit, and then you're also losing the performance for it. And so it's rough. It's really rough. You're going to be losing quite a bit of performance and also have to spend more money. This is really, now here's the crux of it all, and I hope I can edit this video into something, watchable, because I've done a lot of just meandering. However, for me, I had 1440p for a very, very long time, even with my 5080, and it was really hard for me to want to make that switch. I was using, to kind of test it out, I used my computer with my TV, and I was like, okay, this is good, but I'm losing like so many frames by switching to this, and it looked good, but I was losing so many frames, and that was annoying. I'm like, oh man, I really love having more frames, especially if I'm ever playing any competitive games, right? That, and I do think that the clarity of the screen at 1440p 27 inches is great. The only thing I really wanted, I wanted a larger screen. I wanted it to take up more of my vision without losing clarity. That's really why I really wanted to jump to 4K. Because that's what 4K has to offer, right? That is their offering. It's offering higher clarity larger sizes in your vision overall. And so I did eventually jump on it. Crazy thing is, I haven't really talked about this yet. Crazy thing is, I managed on Facebook Marketplace. I was, searching all these things. I was doing all this lurking. I found a listing for a 32-inch 4K 240 hertz OLED QD OLED panel. It is the ROG PG32 UCDM by ROG, Asus ROG. And in no world would I ever buy an ROG product of my own volition, brand new. However, I messaged this guy and I was like, would you take $450 to $500 for it? He was like, oh yeah. He'd only used this monitor for 3 months. He's only had about 500 hours of use on it. And the warranty is still intact. I mean, it's a Asus warranty, so that's whatever. I took it back. I have done all the checks on it, and it's golden. Oh my gosh. Everything's in working order, no burn-in, no dead pixels, no nothing. And I got it, mounted and all that in my setup. And anyway, it's perfect. It's perfect. But I still have lost those frames. But it was only $450. $475 total, but it came with free speakers, so $450. This deal was insane. This monitor goes for $1,300 new. It's currently on sale for $900, I believe. I'll put a link for the exact monitor I have down below, just because, if you're interested. But yeah, I really struggled to switch to 4K. However, now that I'm at 4K, I wouldn't want to go back to 1440p, and that's the real struggle. Because I've lost all this performance that I had at 1440p, that now, in order to keep up with where I am at, I'll need to upgrade sooner. Or I'll just have to let myself, deteriorate in quality faster. Because really, buying a brand new a monitor with a higher resolution and all that is like paying for another set of settings. It's basically like you're paying money to unlock ultra plus settings in a game. You're increasing the load on your computer while also increasing the visual fidelity. A lot of people don't think that 4K is worth it, and I would 100% understand. 1440p 27 inches is great. At a decent distance, you won't tell the difference. It looks fantastic in comparison to 1440p, and not 1440p, in comparison to 1080p. And it is beautiful. 4K is stunning and wonderful, and I love it, and I don't want to go back. But for a lot of people, for many people, it is not worth it. It really isn't. So that's just one of those things. For most people, I would suggest 1440p. And that's basically the gist of it. If you are buying a monitor right now, 1440p is where it's at. Go for it. Clear. Cheap right now. Cheap. You can get a really good OLED 1440p monitor, 27 inches, for under, I think around $400 right now, because it's Black Friday deals right now. So that's amazing if you're in the US. Go for it. That's sick. That is amazing. That is amazing. Go for it. But here's the thing. 4K is only for people who have stupid, powerful systems and love to waste their money and look at pretty lights in front of them. Basically it. Yeah, 1440p is where it's at. That's really where it's at. 1080p, great for competitive gaming. It gives you the most performance, and it's still really clear for like the bare necessities. It's not going to be beautiful, but it does all of the things. You're not missing anything really apart from visual quality if you're at 1080p. If you're doing esports, that's what most esports use is 1080p screens, and that's just the performance gain. It's just worth it to alleviate more of the GPU power and just give that more freedom. It just makes sense for people. Anyway, yeah, I think I've done enough rambling. This is going to be annoying to edit. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.